Alan had no plans to start a family, but when the opportunity to marry a millionaire's daughter arose, he seriously considered it. However, the young woman's appearance was a variable he needed to weigh carefully. Even though he decided to go ahead with the marriage, he was not prepared for the words that were about to be said. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Expectations hung in the air, laden with excitement and anxiety as the family awaited the imminent arrival of their firstborn. The father, full of hopes, was in the living room, while in the bedroom his wife was facing the arduous challenge of childbirth, accompanied with dedication by their trusted midwife. In a time when giving birth in hospitals was a rarity, the scene of a home birth gathered the whole family in an emotional wait, anxious for the moment when the new baby's cry would break the silence. The father, in his mind, had already painted a picture of his future heir, envisioning the continuation of his empire, his achievements, and riches being passed on to this new being who was about to join the family. Then, in a crucial instant, the sound of the baby's cry burst forth like music to everyone's ears. From the doorway of the bedroom, the midwife joyfully announced, "It's a girl!" The father, even trying to hide it, couldn't avoid the disappointment that crept into his expression. Like lightning, a brief thought crossed his mind. He could solve everything. After all, in the distant future, he could simply marry his daughter off to a young man of good lineage, and all his plans would fit together like pieces of a perfect puzzle. But, upon entering the room, reality had prepared another twist. His eyes fell on the little one in the mother's arms, and it was then that he noticed a distinctive mark, almost like a whim of fate, adorned the face of his newborn. He had a thought that emerged like a shadow. Who, in the future, would want to marry his daughter, marked in that unique way on her face? As if struck by a lightning bolt of clarity, he woke up to the superficiality of that momentary thought. That child, with her undeniable uniqueness, was, above all, his daughter. He welcomed her into his arms. The little newborn was baptized with the name Madeline. As days turned into years, the mark that adorned her face remained, a constant companion on her journey. Time brought 3 more siblings into the family. But as happens in many families, the dynamics among the siblings often unfolded into playful teasing. However, in this case, the teasing, though stemming from love, bore a bittersweet flavour. Laughter echoed through the hallways as her siblings maliciously called her ugly. The siblings threw it as a form of provocation, a way to jokingly point out the visible difference that Madeline carried. Madeline's family undeniably loved her. However, the teasing that her parents allowed, or perhaps did not always notice, began to undermine the young girl's confidence. Slowly, the seemingly harmless teasing started to pierce the armour of Madeline's self-esteem. Within the cocoon of her traditional family, Madeline was immersed in a time when women were still struggling to find their place in the world. The winds of change were beginning to blow, but tradition still cast its shadow, especially in the minds of Madeline's parents. As time shaped her into a young woman, Madeline was no longer the child she once was. Her dreams now stretched beyond the familiar horizon. She yearned to explore the world, study, work, and shape her own independence. But Madeline's parents still clung to old traditions. For them, marriage and starting a family were the natural path for their daughter. And so, amidst the sparks of her ambition, Madeline found herself in a dilemma. Madeline grew up enveloped by the persistent shadow of stigma, a deeply rooted belief that she carried a beauty that did not fit conventional standards. This mark on her face, a constant reminder of her difference, whispered in her ears that she was not like the other girls, that she could not expect to be the protagonist in a romantic story. And so, while the young women her age dreamed of wedding dresses and promises of eternal love, Madeline consciously kept a distance from these expectations. She did not nurture dreams of marriage. Madeline secretly attended an event held in her town. A renowned university was conducting presentations, aiming to attract new students to their courses for the next academic year. For Madeline, that encounter was like an opening to an unknown world. As the university lecturers presented courses, opportunities, and a scene of personal growth, she visualized herself walking through the hallways of that institution. But there was a considerable obstacle on the horizon. Moving to another city was a crucial part of her dream, but also an unstable ground. Madeline knew that money would not be a problem, considering her family's wealth, but she was certain of one thing: her parents would not approve of the idea. Still at the event, while flipping through informational pamphlets, Madeline was approached by Alan, a familiar figure, as their families shared a long-standing friendship. "Hi, Madeline. Choosing the course you're going to take?" Alan asked. "Hi, Alan. I wish it were that simple. My parents would never allow me to live alone in another city. And you? Have you chosen your course?" Alan sighed. "I even know which course I'd like to take, but my parents are going through a tough time financially. It would be impossible to cover the costs." The two young people exchanged looks in a moment of shared understanding. Although their circumstances were different, the feeling of frustration was the same. Returning home, Madeline was determined to face the challenge of convincing her parents to let her go to university. In that conversation, Madeline shared her passion for learning, her yearning for independence, and the dreams bubbling inside her. Despite her eloquent efforts, the result was discouraging. Her parents' verdict remained unwavering. She could only leave home if she was married. In an instant, a strategy took shape in Madeline's mind. Her memory brought Alan's face to the forefront, and an idea began to sprout. Perhaps she could solve her own dilemma as well as her friends'. Facing her parents once again, Madeline chose her words carefully. "Dad, Mum, there's something I'd like to share. I have a boyfriend, and he has expressed a desire for us to get married as soon as he finishes his studies. The problem is that he is facing financial difficulties paying for university, and this is where my proposal comes in. Since I know how much you value the idea of me getting married, I am willing to consider that option. We would get married, and you could finance our education." The parents, who were already disheartened and resigned to the idea that their daughter would not marry due to the mark she bore, were now suddenly filled with excitement. The news that a young man, especially from a known family, was interested in marrying the daughter they mistakenly considered unattractive was an unexpected turn of events. Madeline's parents' eyes sparkled with enthusiasm at this new prospect. The idea that their daughter could have a stable future, especially with a young man of good family, brought a wave of hope. With surprising swiftness, they agreed to the proposal, aligning themselves with the idea of financing the couple's education. Madeline would have the opportunity to study in another city, side by side with her future husband. For Madeline, this turn of events was like a ray of light piercing through the dark clouds that loomed over her plans. She was beyond elated, feeling a mix of relief and overflowing joy within her. There was, however, a crucial piece of the puzzle that still needed to fall into place: Alan. With her parents' approval secured, the task now was to convince Alan to embrace this plan, which, although unusual, promised to fulfill the dreams of both. Madeline knew this might sound strange and perhaps even absurd to him, but she also hoped he could understand the logic behind this seemingly crazy proposal. The next day, Madeline gathered all her courage and approached Alan to share her bold proposal. She explained the plan, how marriage could be a solution to fulfill both of their dreams. But Alan's expression was a mixture of surprise and disbelief as he listened intently. He finally spoke, his voice laden with uncertainty. "Madeline, I appreciate the fact that you thought about this, but let's face reality. We are just friends, and to be honest, we're not even that close. Besides, my main focus is my studies, not starting a family." "I completely understand, Alan. Just like you, I don't have the desire to start a family. But consider this as a means to an end. It was the only way I thought I could convince my parents to let me study and at the same time solve the financial problem you're facing. We wouldn't need to make this into anything more than a temporary solution. Once we achieve our goals, we could go our separate ways." He pondered her words, his mind whirling as he tried to grasp the implications of this plan. Are you suggesting that we would pretend to be married just to secure our education and then go our separate ways? Alan asked, seeking clarity. Exactly, Alan. It would be an agreement between us, an opportunity to help each other achieve our dreams. Despite seeming like an absurd idea at first glance, the two young people sealed the agreement, accepting this unconventional solution. The fake marriage was officially scheduled, and a celebration was planned to mark the beginning of this peculiar journey. Madeline and Alan, the fake bride and groom, desired a simple and discreet ceremony, something that reflected the nature of the agreement they had made. Madeline's parents had a different vision. Excited about the idea of seeing their daughter, whom they considered not very attractive, marry a young man from a good family, they organised a grand and pompous celebration. Madeline and Alan, dressed as bride and groom and surrounded by all those curious gazes, began to play their roles. The task of pretending a love that didn't exist was a challenging performance. Amid awkward hugs and uncoordinated kisses, they were navigating unfamiliar territory, learning to act like young lovers. When the pompous ceremony finally ended, the young couple was on the verge of leaving for the new city, where their lives would begin a new joint trajectory. Madeline's parents called them for one last farewell. Their words, instead of being warm, were laden with a strange sincerity. Alan, I would like to thank you for marrying our daughter. I understand that her appearance may not be attractive, especially because of that mark on her face, but I can assure you that she will do her best to make you happy. The cruelty of the words was an unexpected blow, and both newlyweds were stunned by the brutality of the statements. But Alan, without hesitation, stood up in defence of Madeline. With all due respect, sir, your daughter is an incredibly beautiful woman, far beyond the surface. If someone cannot see past a mark on her face, I believe that person lacks the ability to recognise the true virtue she carries. The newlyweds exchanged a look of solidarity and determination before heading towards the new life that awaited them. The university journey they would share would be full of challenges and triumphs. Despite the financial help from Madeline's parents, the couple was determined to maintain their independence as much as possible. Both sought part-time jobs, embarking on a frenetic routine to balance their studies and work. From the beginning, Madeline made it clear to Alan that he was not bound by any relationship commitment, as the marriage was merely a facade. But Alan always preferred her company, a deep friendship built over unique circumstances. Over time, this friendship blossomed into something more. As they delved deeper into their studies and faced the challenges of university life, their feelings for each other grew. The camaraderie that once united them had evolved into an even deeper bond. The relationship that had started as a meticulously planned strategy to achieve individual goals was transforming into something genuine as they found themselves sharing more than just a partnership of convenience. Graduation arrived, and with it came new opportunities. Madeline and Alan, now with a solid foundation of knowledge and experience, decided to open their own law firm. What had begun as a sham marriage shaped by unusual circumstances had evolved into a relationship based on trust, mutual respect, and genuine love. Madeline and Alan became more than study and work partners. They became life partners, sharing dreams, challenges, and triumphs. Indeed, the story of Madeline and Alan is a living testament that true love can flourish in the most unexpected circumstances and amidst peculiar situations. True love is not confined to conventions or predictable paths. It is capable of emerging through challenges, overcoming obstacles, and even in scenarios that may initially seem improbable. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.